Hi, Jonathan from Live Life Coach. Are you or someone you know feeling stuck, searching for direction, or wanting a clearer sense of what's next? You're welcome to connect with me. Whether you're exploring practical next steps or seeking God's leading, I'm always open to a genuine, no pressure conversation. Today I want to explore a bit of an idea that was given to me by a strategic business coach who I was chatting with about whether, possibly working with them. And as I was talking to them, something that they said to me, and they said I'm quite happy for me to use this, was that when you're looking at the label, you can't see what the label is when you're inside the jar that label was on. Now, what they were talking about was how when we look at ourselves, we're looking from the inside out. We don't see what people see of us, and so in our heads we're looking at this label that we have got, and we can't really actually read what's going on the outside. And it's interesting thought that we see that we think we know who we are, we think we know where we're going, what we're doing, and all this sort of stuff. But sometimes there's just things going on that other people see that we don't see. And so when you're inside that jar, you can't see the label, you can't read it. And while you might think that you've got everything together and everything's working out well, sometimes other people will see things a bit differently, and their perspectives can be very helpful to you. And I think it's a big thing of life is that we need to be surrounded by a community, surrounded by people who will help and challenge us. And they can be loved ones, they can be friends, it can be coaches, it can be anybody that is you can trust to give you the right advice, the right thoughts, and the right things going on. It's no point taking advice from a complete stranger when they don't know the circumstances or don't know what's going on. But unless that stranger is stopping you from walking out in front of a car, then take that advice. But we need to be conscious of who we're dealing with and where we're going. And I'm part of a few groups where you build that trust relationship. You build up with the people. You get to know them. You get to understand them, and they get to understand you. And you really work through and just figure out these things. And as you build that trust, that level of respect, that level of understanding, those people can come through with ideas that help you. They can help you see a different perspective. They can help you understand a different way of doing things. And all that sort of thing is very helpful, because often if we try and stay within ourselves, try and stay within our own thoughts, then we will often we'll just keep going round and round in circles, or we'll be thinking the wrong thing or working on the wrong thing because our perspective sees it one way, but in reality it might be another way. And so this idea that again, we can't read the label from inside the jar. It's great. I mean, okay, some labels have writing on the inside, you can read that, but then can you tell me what is on the outside? Does it tell you that it's strawberry jam and then it's 375 grams, or does it tell you that it's peanut butter and it's got peanuts in it? Warning. But this sort of thing is when we open ourselves up to others and accept their advice and think about the things that they say to us, we can really see some things change. And I know for myself in the past, I've been done coaching for myself. I've gone to coaches, talked to them and asked them different things and worked through different things with them, and they bring a different perspective, they bring a different thought, they help you to think outside of the box, they help you to come outside of that jar and look at things from a different angle and see what is going on. Can you try this? Can you try that? Have you thought about this? What is it that makes you say that sort of thing is going on? Or where are you going with this line of thought that you're working through? What is going to be the outcome if you do such and such? And it just works through and helps you to see things from a different perspective. And sometimes you'll be on the right track. You don't really need that. Other times you have to think about it and go, okay, that's an idea, that's a different perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way. maybe there is something there that I can do. And there's always lots of advice out there, and you have to be careful who you talk to. I've spoken before about, sometimes you get people who just, don't understand what you're going through. They look at it from their perspective, because they're looking from the inside of their jar, and they're going, oh, no, you can't do that. Why would you want to go into business? Or why do you want a fast car? Or why do you need this? Or what are you doing that for? Not always, not everyone's perspectives are always correct for you. I had somebody ask me the other day about coaching and saying, what is it you sort of do? People come to you and you give them advice and tell them, things they can do and whatnot. I says, well, no, actually I don't. Because my advice, what I think is right to do may be totally wrong for you. Who am I to say that, hey, you should go out and be a race car driver? Just because I like driving cars doesn't mean that that person does, that they're suited to driving fast cars, or that they have an ambition to drive fast cars. Be talking about totally different things. I'm more of a motorsport man rather than rugby, and so when people start talking about rugby, I'm a bit lost. And it's that kind of idea that people can come along and they can start talking a totally different language to you. They start talking about rugby, and I'll just sort of glaze over a bit because I don't understand it. I know enough. I know how the game sort of goes and that sort of thing. But when you hear two people who actually understand and know how rugby works and how it's played, the things that happen in a rugby game, and they're interested and they really liked, they enjoy that, it's a very different conversation. And that's the thing, is that, when somebody doesn't understand something, they're going to not talk the language. They're not going to talk in a way that brings it across positively. They're going to look at it and say, why do you want to do that? Who'd want to play rugby? I mean, what a brutal sport that is. Oh, that's just horrible. A lot of people love it, and that is fine. There isn't absolutely nothing wrong with that. But who are you talking to? What are you talking to them about? And do they understand? I learned very early on when I got into business, but over 20 years ago, you talk business with other business people, because people who are employed don't understand the pressures and the challenges and the things that are going on. I've been employed. I was employed for 11 odd years, and I understand what it is to be an employee. I understand what it is to be an employer. I've had people working for me. There's lots of challenges around each way, and we've got to take those things, and when you talk to somebody who talks your language, things become a bit clearer. And that's where talking to a coach, myself, I found that that really helps to talk to somebody who understands what I'm going through, somebody who's been through business, somebody who's got a different perspective on life and can listen, and rather than telling me what I should be doing, they bring different ideas, they ask different questions. My coach that I work with, she asked me, what are three things that I wanted to do in life? What are three things that would interest me if I was to move forward? Basically I put down, I says, well, I like cars. They're great. I wouldn't actually mind, fixing up cars and doing that sort of thing. I like real estate. I've got an interest in houses and owning houses, working with them. Always thought it'd be good, because being in real estate, you work with people. I like people. It's quite a good thing. I thought, hey, the idea's been given to me of coaching. And as I worked through the different ideas and worked through things, I was able to clarify and figure out what actually worked for me. Now, she didn't give me the ideas. She didn't say to me, look, I think you're this type of person. I think you should do this. In fact, after I came back to her and says, hey, actually, you know what? I've decided I'd like to give coaching a go. And at that stage, I hadn't clarified what sort of coaching I was going to give into, but I thought, I want to give that a go. I think that sounds like me. And she said to me, that's what I was thinking. That was what I was doing. But she didn't say that to me. She didn't try and steer me in that direction, because she knew I needed to learn and understand and figure out for myself where I wanted to go. And I think that's the thing, when you've got the right people around you, then they will help you to move forward in the right direction. They won't push their ideas on you or their agenda. They won't try and make you do the things that they think you should be doing. They'll actually just encourage you and help you. And where they can, they will guide you in a direction. If they've been down that path before, or they've seen some challenges that match up with what you're going through, they can be there, they can help you, they can guide you, but they'll never force you to do something that isn't right for you. And that's, what working through and helping each other is, that community where you can, talk to others. You can find people who are like-minded, who can help you see things from a different perspective. They come in from the outside. They're looking at your label, not the inside of the label, but the outside of the label, and they're seeing what's going on. They can say to you, hey, look, here's the perspective that I see. Here's what I think might be helpful. Have you thought about this? Have you worked through that? What about this idea? And they just throw things out there that will help you to move forward, help you to see things from a different perspective, and really just help you in many ways in life. And it's that whole thing that if we just stay inside our own jar, we never get out and ask others what is on the outside, then we form this idea that we decide is the right way. We all know those people who think they know everything, and it can be challenging dealing with those people, can't it? You're sort of wondering, oh man, look, I can see a different way of doing this, but I know they're not going to listen. And I don't want to be that person. I hope you don't want to be that person, because when we listen to others, when we gain that perspective and we work through that and we figure things out, we gain clarity, we gain some direction, and we can really make things work in the right way for ourselves, and that can then build us up, which also builds up others as well. And it really is this challenge that we have in life to be able to actually accept advice coming in. Some of the communities that I'm involved in, the groups that I'm involved in, are about challenging each other, working through it and going, hey, what is it really that we're saying? What are we doing? Think about things differently. I've had some challenging days where I say things because I think out loud. So I'll just say whatever I'm sort of thinking, I'll just blurt it out. It may not be actually what I'm really going through, or the right words or anything like that, but I just put it out there, and then someone come back and say, challenge me on it, and say, hey, you're saying this. And it's like, yeah, actually, you know what? It's just something I'm working through, and this is the point that I'm at right at the moment, and this is how I'm perceiving it. And they can come back and say, okay, have a think about this way or that way, work on this. This might help you. And so that is an area that can really help me grow, help me change perspectives, change the way I do things if I need to. Not every piece of advice, not every thought train that comes along is correct. You need to filter out what is good and what is bad. Figure out what it is that works for you, but don't get trapped inside that jar and shut the lid. Keep that lid open. Allow some things to come in. Filter them through your process, through how you do things, and start making steps forward. Walk along and take in those things. Understand that people who know you, who love you, are going to give you advice that want to make you better for yourself and for those around them. And we can all grow together. So there is that idea that if we have a community around us, we're not isolated, but we have a community around us that really helps us grow, really helps us become the people that we can be. It can bring us outside of our shell. It can help us take masks off. It can help us move forward and really change and make a difference for a lot of things. And sometimes we need that challenge. So if you're stuck inside your jar, you're just looking at the back of the label going, I don't know what's going on here. Open that lid, let some perspective in, let some people help you, have a chat, reach out, don't be afraid. If you're interested in some coaching and just looking at where things could go, trying to understand, I really want to be helping people find some clarity, some direction, and some purpose in their lives, so that they can move forward, so that they can make those changes, so they can live their lives to the fullest. Because in the day, that's what it's about, is being able to enjoy the life you've got, not being stuck in a job you don't enjoy, or stuck in something that's not quite right for you, but being able to find that happiness that comes from when you're moving in the right direction, you're moving on the right path, and you can just really grow and learn. It's a great thing to get out, get that different perspective, keep your lid open, let people fill you up, and let them really bring you to a place that can help you, but filter it. Don't just let any old thing in, because some people don't have a filter. Some people just say anything, any old thing, just because they don't think it's right. Find out what's right for you, but let others help you, guide you, and show you things that are worthwhile for you, and how they can see you can grow, and help you through times that sometimes are challenging, sometimes are great. We just got to keep moving forward, and we take each of those things. We learn, we trust, and we find people who we can rely on, and we work through these things. So if you're in that point where you're a bit stuck, you're not sure, you want some direction, you want some purpose, you want to find a bit of clarity, then hey, reach out. If not to a friend, to a coach, to myself, whoever you think would be most helpful to you, and let's find that direction and purpose. Let's get the clarity and move forward each day in a good way. Hope you enjoyed that, and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.